Okay, hello. Am I standing in the right spot? Yeah, good. All right. I'm Laurie Stirling. If you haven't met me before, I will tell you a bit more about my business as the talk goes on. But the main thing I want to speak today is about how to scale when you are the talent of the business. Now, I understand that not everybody here owns their own business. Maybe can I have a show of hands of how many people own their own business? You might be a freelancer. Oh, most. Okay, that's pretty good. There is definitely relevant information here if you are perhaps the marketing manager, department of one, that sort of thing, then this will still be relevant for you as well. So if you are the talent of your business, then you probably are the bottleneck of your business as well, because there's all of these hats that we have to wear and then we have to learn really quickly when we start our entrepreneurship journey. And I find that all of these hats, we can tend to really wear them with pride because it's hard work learning all of these roles. And so it becomes part of our identity of this business that we've built and all the hats that we wear. But sometimes it can actually start to hold us back and we need to start taking some of those hats back off. So this is what happens when you are the golden goose. Well, you're the goose that lays the golden eggs, is that your team need your attention, your clients want your attention, you're the face or the brand of the business, you're making all the decisions, you're taking on all of the risks, and you're stretched thin. So does that tend to ring a bell? So interesting stat is that approximately 80% of UK small to medium business enterprises that are taken to market fail to sell. And this might be like an unusual stat to put in there, but it will come a bit more evident. But one of the primary reasons being the business's dependence on the business owner. So essentially what we're saying is your business is more valuable without you in it than with you in it. And that can, when you're the talent of the business, that can sort of not line up with that identity that you have inside your business. So there's a bit of a shift that needs to happen, that we step into a CEO role and not just the operator role inside the business. And I was one of them. So I started my very first business when I was 21 years old, and I built that business. It was a graphic design business that turned into a web design business that then turned into a web development business. We ran that for over 14 years, and it funded our lifestyle. It was six-figure profits. We went traveling around the world, bought a house, raised kids, all of that sort of thing. Learned to live on that unpredictable income that comes part and parcel with entrepreneurship. And then we decided we were going to move from Australia to the UK, and we sold that business. Now, unfortunately, we didn't sell that business for as much as we would have liked because it was dependent on us as the owner of the business. So since then, I like to say, if I knew then what I learned now, it would have changed a trajectory. But it's an amazing journey that I went on. And what I discovered is that your business being worth more without you, the business asset that it is, when you're building a business, it's a business that essentially creates money for you. Of course, there's passion that goes behind that. There's your IP, your experience that goes into that. But we're building and creating a machine that essentially the gears are people in it. People, technology, IP, and we're getting all of those systems to communicate with each other, throw in some emotions in there, and economy. Like, it's just a machine that's constantly in turmoil. So we're always on our toes in this business asset. So if I knew now what I knew then, is to understand that my business is an asset that is separate from me and my identity. And so if you've heard of, there's a book called 24 Assets by Daniel Priestley, and he speaks about these are the 7 topics of marketing assets. And so if you can extract that knowledge from your head, the IP side of things, and then create assets that are separate from, it's not all living in your head, then your business becomes more valuable. The more assets you have in your business that you build, the more valuable your business becomes. And we're going to be brushing on a couple of these in this talk today. So when you are the golden goose, usually you start your business because you have a unique ability that you bring to the table through years of experience, through maybe a talent that you had once you're maybe from a very young age, and you've decided to turn that talent into your way of creating income. But that unique ability, when we're turning it into an asset, what we're looking for is the unique activity that you do in your business that utilizes your unique ability. Once we understand what that unique activity is, that's the essential piece of your IP that we can document that and then pass that and distill that on to your team members and those that work with you. So the most important role of the business founder is actually being the captain of the ship. When you are going down below deck, shoveling coal into the engine, nobody's upstairs watching where we're going. No one's looking out for icebergs. No one's telling us the direction to go. The vision you have for your business is the most important role when you are the captain of the ship. Now, if you are thinking of exiting, then or passing it on to the next generation, then you're also looking for somebody who has the same vision as you, or you can teach them the vision and they can take that and run with that vision as well. But essentially, when we're building a business that can run itself, we are streamlining the business, making it more efficient. We're making sure it is scalable beyond you and that it is self-sustainable. And I'll go into what each of those means. So scalable is the vision that we just spoke about. So when we're looking at a vision, it can be the big picture. What does the business look like beyond you, just the sole person inside your business or the sole talent of your business? And there are 5 ways to scale a business. The most common one I hear, and I heard it today, was imagine if I could just hire another me, then I can create an agency style model of a business and grow the business. But what happens when the clients just want me? What happens when the person I hire doesn't have the same, they might have the same skill set, but they don't have the same personality. So maybe they don't get along with the team, or maybe it's just a really expensive option to hire another you. You need to have someone who's got lots of experience as well. And it can also be, you need to ensure that you have the sales pressure in the pipeline to make sure that you can support another you, because you're essentially doubling your business overnight. So that is one option. It is a valid option, but it's not the only option. We can train new talent. So this is a cheaper option. This is maybe training somebody up who is in a different role currently, and we can train them into a more senior role in the business. It could be that you train someone in a different industry that has the soft skills that you need, and then just train them in the techniques that is relevant for your business. It can also be that you are, this can be a franchise model. So it can be train new talent for the agency model, but it can also be train new talent in a franchise style model. And you're teaching the teacher essentially. And so you can use your IP, license your IP, grow other franchises on that IP. This is the one that I like to call the Rockstar model, where you get to just turn up and be the talent, and everything else that is on your plate, we get off your plate and your team takes that on. And it might just be one of those hats. Maybe it's, just your emails, that you hire someone, a contractor for 5 hours a week to look after that. That's just one hat that you can take off. We don't have to be, when we're hiring another you, we're usually looking for someone who can wear all the same hats as you. We don't have to do that in this scenario. We can just take one hat off and peel off that hat and delegate that in smaller chunks. And then essentially when you're running your own business, you're doing 100% of the work. When you turn up and become the talent, then we're taking maybe 80% of that work off your plate, and you're just turning up and doing 20% that just lights you up. You're working in your zone of genius. It's just you doing what you do best. It's the highest value task that you can be doing in your business. And then there's sort of something special that happens when you're working in this zone. When you're just working on that 20% becomes your new 100. And then after a while, you'll find that there's a new 20%. And then if you can hone in on that new 20%, you end up leveling up. yourself in such a different way that you can open up possibilities that you didn't even know were there. And you didn't know they were there because you were carrying that original 100% on your plate that whole time. Okay, another model is delivering one-to-many. So this can be teaching courses, this can be membership platforms. This can also be utilizing software. So when we start training our staff, sometimes we need to give them sort of boundaries and sort of sets of rules that this is the decisions that I make in this particular circumstance. I'm teaching my team to make those same decisions the same way. We can use software, especially vibe coding these days using AI. We can create software that creates those boundaries so that our team can follow the same rules and the same boundaries that I would usually use, that normally would happen in my head. Off the top of my head, after years of experience that I can just do automatically, I can tell the software what those boundaries are and those limits are. And then my team can use that same software for our clients so that they can stay within the perimeters, the safe perimeters. Or in some circumstances, we can give that software to our clients and the clients can go and use it. We can serve so many more people because of the one-to-many of technology that can help us reach so much further than that. So that, and it doesn't just have to be delivery, it can also be selling one-to-many. So a website, for example, can convert one-to-many, depending on the technology that you're utilizing. And the final one, this is one for usually people who are like, no, I don't want to hire someone else because that's just too much, burden of the responsibility of somebody's livelihood leaning on me. So another option is becoming the best in your industry by raising your profile. And that means that you can raise your demand because more people know about you and want to work with you. And by raising your demand, you can raise your prices. And that is sort of the steps that can take you there. So when you become the best in your industry, you're literally like writing the book on the subject. You are speaking to other members in your industry about your particular IP that you're bringing to the table. And when you become known for your industry, the best in your industry, then that's how we raise that profile. Lots of, you can be through awards, through speaking, through PR, that sort of thing is what you'd be looking at to raise your profile. Or it can be a combination of all of these or some of these. I find that sometimes when someone is concentrating on raising their profile, that they build up such demand that maybe they can start looking at option number 3 and get some of the other hats off their plate. And then while they're there, they can pay to introduce some software because they've got the cash flow now. And then that means that they've got their benchmarks that they can start building a team. So sometimes this is just a pathway to get from one area to the other, but ultimately it's helping us step back from the doing inside the business, and then you can be that leader, that visionary of your business. So this is an example of one of the clients I worked with. Kate was an illustrator, and she worked for big companies like Google and things for doing visual note taking. She would be asked to go to conferences all around the world, in London, big companies that you've all heard of, and she was just one person and she couldn't keep doing it for herself. She ended up raising her profile more and more to get to this stage. But then she built a company called The Good Ship Illustration, where she started teaching others to do what she does. And then she built another company because she had so much demand in her pipeline that she could actually start delegating some of these tasks out to other freelancers as well. So she made that journey right through there as a simple illustrator who was the talent of their business, able to grow that business beyond herself. So being self-sustainable is about the legacy that you're living. When we spend 20, maybe 30 years in the industry or in your business doing what you do best, we saw the stat earlier, 80% of businesses get to the end of their career and just shut their business down. And all the people that you have impacted, or all the staff that you have been able to employ, that all the systems that you've built, that all gets shut down and is not valuable to anybody. Whereas if you consider that your business is an asset, then perhaps you can sell your business and then your business becomes part of your retirement plan. And maybe the business can keep running while you've retired and you can keep receiving income from your business. Or maybe you can actually exit and get a big payout, and then you can invest that money and that becomes your retirement plan. Or maybe it's passing it on to the next generation. And so the impact that you've made in your business, when you're passing it on to the next generation, you're essentially leaving a legacy. It doesn't have to just get shut down after your career is finished. So when we speak of the golden goose analogy, where there's a key activity that you're doing inside your business, as long as the business that is protected inside the business, then we will go on to see, okay, where are the actual bottlenecks happening? And so your bottleneck isn't you, it is actually an activity that you're doing. And there are 5 business cycles that happen inside a business. And it generally follows a client-customer journey. And so brand awareness is the very first one. How does somebody discover that you are the person that solves the right problem for them? Then they need to indicate their interest, and we capture that lead that comes with us and we nurture that lead so that they will eventually, they understand, we build the know, like, and trust factor, they understand what we do. And then the next bottleneck is selling and conversion. So if you're the only person who does the sales calls in the business, then that can be a conversion bottleneck. Perhaps it's your website. Maybe you need videos for your website to help improve conversion. That could be a bottleneck inside your business. And then understanding, like, when somebody's willing to pay and work with you, how many steps or how many hoops do they have to jump through before they can work with you, and that onboarding is a lot smoother. Then we've got delivery and capacity. So if you doubled your business overnight, could you handle the increasing workload, and would your clients continue to be delighted with that? If not, then you have a capacity problem inside your business. And then cash flow can be equally linked. Sometimes cash flow comes before capacity, not after capacity, depending if you get deposits or something for your work. But in like product-based businesses, then you get paid last. So you have to understand you're not only covering your cash flow just to deliver the work, you're covering the cash flow to go right around the whole cycle. And then if you are at capacity and you're still having cash flow problems, then maybe we need to look at your pricing, or maybe it's that you want to level up in your business, but you need to maybe get some external funding inside your business to be able to take that leap inside your business. And then once someone is paid and they're happy working with you, we want the next person to be standing there ready in line with their money to hand out, ready for you, so that when that cycle happens evenly, the next person's just ready to go. The reality is we're usually jumping between delivery and then grabbing new leads and then back to delivery, and then maybe we've got some leads but we need to go into sales calls. So it's typical to jump from one to another, but that can happen in a smooth cadence. And then once our client has finished working with us, they might work with us again in the same capacity, or in an upsell or a downsell in a different capacity. They might be your biggest fans, and they will refer you on to other people. And so we can encourage that and create systems that help to capture those referrals a lot easier. Or it could be that we grab a testimonial from that client and we can use that in our marketing to keep going. So that cycle continue to keep working. And then no matter what level you're at in your business, there will always be a bottleneck. It's the weakest link in that chain. And what I find is when we overcome one of those bottlenecks, we end up leveling up our business, and then we find another bottleneck somewhere else. So maybe we do hire somebody to help us increase our capacity. We've been fine with leads, but maybe we need to actually get somebody else to help with sales or something like that. So we find that that bottleneck might appear elsewhere because now we've got that capacity, we might need to bring in new leads. Feel free to take a photo of this. I have a bottleneck quiz that you can do, and we can have a free diagnosis session. It takes a couple of minutes to fill out. So just take a photo for now and you can fill it out at the end. I'll show the barcode again. But if you're curious about what bottleneck is for your business, we have a quiz that we can do that. So once we've worked out what our biggest bottleneck is, then we go into like diagnosing a strategy, what the execution of that looks like, And we need to measure that using metrics like lag metrics and lead metrics to understand, if we fix this bottleneck, how do I know it's been fixed? And that's sort of going deeper into operations. And operations is, once I sold my business when we moved from from Australia to the UK, I started helping people to be able to live on unpredictable income. I was pretty good with the finance side of things. I've been in finance industry long before I started my business. And I realized that I was really good at diagnosing the problems in a business by looking at their metrics and their numbers, but I couldn't fix that problem until I went deeper into operations. And so this was part of the strategy. With every 90 days, with every client that I work with, we go into what is the bottleneck, how can we diagnose it, what's the strategy, how do we execute that, and how do we measure that every 90 days. This was another client of mine who, when I started working with her, she owned a baby sensory class, and she was pulling in six figures inside her business, but her business was in debt. It wasn't making a profit, and she wasn't paying herself, and she wasn't making a wage at all. And she loved working with the babies. She knew that there was something in this that we needed to work on. But since then, that was quite a few years ago now, she's about to hit seven figures in her business. She has multiple franchises. She still gets to play with the babies when she wants to, but she's been able to grow the business in such a way because she's been able to delegate to her team. And one of the most important aspects that she did when she grew the team was be able to build her culture. And so she made the business more streamlined by working on the culture inside the business. So one of the biggest mistakes that leaders make when they're delegating to a team is that they delegate the task, but they don't delegate the decisions that come with the task. So a team member gets a task given to them, and then they're back to the lead or the manager asking questions. Well, what about this? What about that? And what's happening is, when you're the business owner, you're used to taking on risk. You're used to the decisions that you make, whether they're right or they're wrong. You're the one who holds the ball at the end of the day. But what happens is, when you delegate to a team member, you're asking them to take on risk. And so for them, they don't, like, how safe is it for them to take on that risk? Will they lose their job if they make the wrong decision? Will they cost the company money if they make the wrong decision? If they make a mistake, will they be able to fix the mistake? Will you support them to fix that mistake? What are the boundaries around it? So sometimes it's about creating the boundaries for our team members so that they can make decisions and that's safe for them to make that decision. So for example, if a customer service person is looking after some returns on a product, and they have instructions that if something costs less than £50 to fix, then you have permission to go and fix it. Now, if it's going to cost more than £50, then we escalate it and we'll talk to the team, like, how did this problem happen? How can we fix it so it doesn't happen again? But that permission to say, look, just go and fix it. You don't need to ask permission to spend £50 to fix this problem. Then that is a boundary that you've given them. Don't go over £50, but feel free to take it's sort of like autonomy in that project to be able to fix that issue themselves. So part of culture is looking at efficiency over productivity. So productivity is the more hours and effort and time and money that you put into something, the more you will take out of it. Whereas efficiency is that we are more intentional about the time and the effort that we're putting into a task so that we get more output at the end of the day. So efficiency over productivity. Team autonomy, yes. Micromanaging, no. And continuous improvement. So yes, our team, we need to be the team needs to know that yes, it's okay to start where I'm at, but we're always looking for ways to improve, ways to make processes better, ways to make a client experience better in all the small things. And that is where continuous improvement can happen in ourselves, in our processes, in our clients. And that's part of the culture, that everybody understands that this is what we uphold. So you might have your own set of values that happen inside of the business. So these are delegation steps to make sure that we are covering all of the things that we just spoke about. This doesn't have to happen every time you delegate to a team member, but you want to make sure that this is covered at least the first time and that it's recorded somewhere. So the overview of the task that you're giving somebody, where does that fit into the bigger picture? Why am I posting on social media? Well, is it because we want to get more website traffic? That social media might look, if we delegate a task and we say your job is to post 3 times a week, then the outcome, the lag metric is there's 3 posts that have been posted. But the intention was that we wanted to drive more traffic to our website. But if a different intention was actually, we don't want to drive people to our website, we actually want to get more engagement because we want to improve our brand, then what I post those 3 times a week is going to look completely different to what I'm posting if I'm trying to drive traffic to my website. So understanding why I'm doing this task and what the metrics are and where that task fits, how does it affect other people in the process, the other team members, that's what we're looking for in the overview. Instructions, have I given all the information? Have I given all the passwords? What would I be referencing to make that happen? Have I given all of those instructions to make that clear? The outcome, that's the metrics. How do I know I'm doing a good job? Because that outcome has been achieved and they know what that outcome is. Accountability. So accountability isn't micromanaging. Accountability is checking in. It can be in team meetings to say, okay, you are responsible for this task. We'll check back in 2 weeks' time to make sure it's done. A due date is done by then, and then that person is held accountable. That doesn't mean we're asking them every day, we're pestering every day, where are you up to? We're giving them the accountability, but they still have their own autonomy. And then boundaries. I spoke earlier about boundaries, about is there a cost? Where is there software? Is there a decision tree that I might want to give somebody on how I would do this task? How do I want to make sure that I've set boundaries so that my team feels safe doing this role? And then confidence. Sometimes confidence can hold our team back. And have they done this before? Do they need some training? How confident are they? And I'll ask them, how confident are they to do this task? And then if they're not confident, maybe they need a bit of shadowing, or they need some a walkthrough or a video of that process. So my question is, what is your legacy? So how and when you plan to exit your business will affect how you run your business now, how you intend to grow your business now. That part of that big vision comes into play, and it might be that you are planning to exit your business in 10 years' time. That's fine, but the way you exit will still affect how you build your business, how that vision and outcome comes now, and we can start preparing for that tomorrow. If right now you're solo, but you know you would like to bring on a team member, we can start capturing the tasks that I do from day to day. I can screen capture a walkthrough, put it in a file. Maybe I'm not hiring someone for another 6 months, but I'm starting to build an onboarding process for that person that I won't have to be there and hold their hand and guide them, because if I'm doing the work anyway, I can capture that process while I'm doing it. So what does that look like for you? I am a growth and exit plan strategist. That is what I do outside. When I worked past the operations side of things and I discovered this world of a business that can run itself. And if I knew then what I knew now, I could have sold my business for either a lot more, or I wouldn't have had to sell it at all. I could have kept it running without me. And so I love to share these with everybody to know that your business is actually more valuable than you even realize. And that's by turning it into an asset. So feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. That is my LinkedIn, a QR code for my LinkedIn account. I'm also on Instagram. But I've also included the bottleneck quiz again, just in case you didn't catch that as well. Feel free to have a go filling that out. And I'm happy to answer some questions.
I have one.
Yes, please.
Do you have any favorite tools that you use to record those documents you were talking about?
Yeah, one of my favorite is Scribe. That's one that while I'm going through, the tool will take screenshots. It will write to text the steps that I'm doing, and I don't have to tell it. It just does it all automatically, and that's definitely one of my favorites. But something as simple as just using Loom to capture a video and then labeling it in a Google document, and then attaching like a link inside that Google document, and that Google ends up becoming almost like a content table or a Wikipedia for my particular business, so that any question that I think my staff will ask, they can go to that document and open it up, and they'll see that there's instructions there. And I might build that over many years. Yeah.
Before, when you mentioned IP at the very start, I was just wondering what exactly is an IP. It's just not something I'm familiar
Yeah.
with.
IP is basically the knowledge and skill set that you've built up over the years of your career. And it's your particular way of doing something that seems to get the best results for your clients. And like I like to use the example of two accountants can have, technically they're trained the same way, but they can run their two businesses very differently. One can be that they have the fastest turnaround. As soon as you give the books, they can have next day the tax is ready for you to sign off. Whereas a different accountant might say, hey, we bring you in, we sit down and we talk about your plans and we help you with some strategy. And essentially they both have the end goal of filing your taxes, but they're both two very different ways of running their business. And so that IP they both have a different like golden goose activity that's happening. So that becomes part of their IP, part of what makes them different, makes them separate from their competition. Yeah. And it becomes processes of what are the questions that their team asks? What's the onboarding process like? What technology am I using? All of that becomes part of your IP.
I really like the fact that you kind of spoke about accountability, autonomy, and confidence. Yeah. I see that a lot. I don't know if you've seen it a lot on your side as well, but what has been steps that has worked for you in the past if you've worked with a team member who struggled with confidence, but they can do it, and they want the accountability and that autonomy. How do you balance that micromanaging versus autonomy and confidence?
There's a few different ways. Like you can give them some incentives. So if it's like confidence that they just need to step out and do something, maybe it's come to a networking event by themselves. They don't have confidence to do that. Maybe giving them an incentive to come along here and do this. And, if you do that on behalf, might give them a gift or something, some sort of incentive to do that. Sometimes it might be maybe some more training needs to go into that to help them build their confidence. A lot of the time it's just repeating it, doing it once, doing it twice. And that can happen maybe through shadowing. So if you're they're shadowing you, but then you might turn the tables and then you shadow them as well. And that can also be part of like building repetition in a task and build confidence as well. Yeah, definitely relevant.
Multiple questions within this, but how effective is something like an AI agent or Claude in terms of taking on, like delegating to that? Is that something that would would increase the value at all, or do you think it also has to be like the people first approach?
It definitely does help increase, yes. So I had a tool that I vibe coded. So part of looking at numbers, I vibe coded an app that can reverse engineer your numbers based on the income that I want to make. Here's my packages that I offer. How many of those packages do I need to sell? How many sales calls will that turn into? How many leads? And so I got the software to be able to do that. Now, like that's something that I can do in my head with a client or with a spreadsheet. But now that I've put it inside some software, my team can now do that and they have the boundaries to do that. So that now becomes an asset. So when we talk about assets in our business, usually in the accounting world, your assets you'll see on your balance sheet, and that's usually the equipment and buildings and things like that. There are assets, and me selling my business was proof of this. There are assets that aren't showing on your balance sheet that absolutely increase the value of your business. Your website, your brand, your domain name. That was actually what I sold when I moved from Australia to the UK, and we sold our branding, and that was an asset that somebody else found valuable. The more assets we have in combination, so your legals can be an asset, your systems and processes, if they're documented in a particular way, that can be an asset. Your brand awareness campaigns can be an asset. Your email sequences, your email list, all of those are assets that technically on your accounting balance sheet isn't worth anything, but when you are looking to sell your business, all of that has value. And so it comes like when you're looking for someone to buy the business, that's where the marketing comes into it, to show that this whole package is a machine that runs smoothly. I've got all of these assets. It can run without me. Those assets can work without me being the linchpin of that process.
Can I just first of all say, Laurie, fantastic insights tonight.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you sharing. You mentioned once or twice, if you knew then what you know now.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering if you'd actually be willing to share what you would have done differently with your business based on your knowledge now.
Yes. So operations. I ran my business for 14 years and not knew what operations meant. It was just a buzzword to me. Once I exited the business, I ended up working for a company based in the US who are an efficiency productivity company, but they essentially taught operations. And when there's a book by an author called Mike Michalowicz. He wrote a book called Clockwork. And when I read that book, I'm like, wow, it opened up a whole new world to me. I actually contacted the person who ran that company and asked whether I could be a coach in their company. And they said yes. And so this was over COVID times, and they trained me. I wanted to do their program. The program cost like $5,000 to do it. It's even more now. I think it's like 8,000 nowadays. And they essentially paid me to do that program, not just to do the program, but to teach the program as well. And so what I learned inside that business was the essential levers of operations. And that is your team dynamics, your culture. That is the tools that you use in your business. It is the tech that you have. It is the IP, extracting that IP. So all of those, even like where you spend your time is part of that process, and understanding that I can do an audit on where I'm spending my time and be able to take those hats. So essentially the whole of the talk was what I had learnt in that time that I wish I knew back then. Yeah.
Thank you, Laurie.
Oh,
really helpful, really insightful. Can I ask, do you think there's still work to be done with, say, clients around freelance versus agency?
As in getting the clients to prefer one over the other?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens when your client directly works with you, you are the face of the business, you have built that trust, that know, like, and trust. You've built that with your client. When you start growing into agency style, what needs to happen is there's a transfer of trust that you have built trust with your client. Now you need to transfer that trust to your team, and you can assure the client by saying, I have taught them personally, they have gone through my methodology, they're even better at this than I am. So that reassurance and that to tell the client you're in good hands, I'm still keeping an eye on the project, I will be touching base and be part of that process, but you are transferring that trust to your team. And so you can do that in lots of ways. You can do that before you've even gotten to the sales process stage. You can actually build your team into your brand awareness. So maybe you want your team to be more of the face of the business, and you can show that, grow that know, like, and trust through your socials by putting your team in the spotlight a bit more often. Or it could happen behind the scenes. It doesn't have to happen publicly. But yeah, there's lots of different ways we can grow that trust. So with my illustrator client, she used to allocate different illustrators to her clients, and she created a set of cards that had like a profile of the illustrator to introduce them to that client, so that they knew what their skill set was, what their style of illustration was, and that was part of that transfer of trust, to say, here's the person who I picked for you. I think they're just going to be perfect for you, and that transfer of trust has happened. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you had a
Thank you. Thanks for having me.